Hello everyone, Cindy here with Monarch Mom DIY. Thank you so much for joining me today on my channel where I love to bring you my best tips and tools to create beautiful home decor on a budget. Today I'm back with 4 more budget DIYs from Dollar Tree. Our first project is this pumpkin tin centerpiece. I'm going to use this metal tub and these 3 pumpkins from Dollar Tree, some greenery, and some burlap ribbon. The first thing we're going to do with this little garden tub is I'm going to give it 2 coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin. I needed 2 coats, especially just to cover up those words on the front. So I'm just giving this whole thing on the outside a good coat, letting it dry, and then coming back in with a second coat. Now, Dollar Tree has lots of different types of pumpkins this size. I liked these because they had this faux leather on the outside, which I will keep and use for something else. But really, I just wanted for this project to use the foam pumpkins inside. I'm going to be painting them. Now, you could definitely use any of the types of pumpkins Dollar Tree has for this project. Just find ones that you like for your decor. I did like the stems on these as well. So in order to be able to paint these, I'm going to stick a couple of bamboo skewers into the hole where the stem was. And I am just going to give these each 1 coat of Waverly chalk paint. And I'm going to be using the colors Celery, Pumpkin, and Sandstone. Next, taking these wooden letters from Dollar Tree. I don't know if they actually still carry these anymore, but you could definitely get some at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to paint the fronts of these wood letters also with celery. You can see I have the letters stuck down to a piece of masking tape with the sticky side up, and then I have it secured to my desk. This just makes painting these small pieces so much easier. I also decided to paint the stems. They were a hard plastic, but they had this shiny gold on them. So I'm just giving them a coat of my Waverly chalk paint in the dark brown color called Truffle. Now, even though I painted the tin, you can still see the raised letters. So I'm going to take this burlap ribbon. I'm going to cut it a little more narrow, and we're going to wrap our garden tub with this burlap ribbon to cover up those raised words. And now that our pumpkins and our stems are dry, we're just going to take some hot glue and we're going to add the stems back into the pumpkins. I wanted to add a little bit more interest to these pumpkins, so I'm taking my Tim Holtz Distressing Ink in Vintage Photo, and I'm just making these pumpkins look a little older and more worn. And to be honest, also to cover up the look that these are just foam pumpkins. So if you look super closely, you can tell that they're styrofoam. But again, like I said, use whichever pumpkins from Dollar Tree or even Hobby Lobby that you want for this project. So taking some hot glue now, 1/2 at a time, I'm going to just put a little bit under the burlap ribbon to tack it down to the front of our container. And then I will bring it around, wrap it around. Because it's not a straight up and down container, the ribbon will kind of go up in the back, but that's okay. We're gonna glue it down, we're gonna trim the edge, and no one's ever gonna see the back anyway. And now that the burlap ribbon is around the tub, we're gonna glue down our wood letters that we painted with the celery green. And it's just gonna say pumpkins in a really fun pattern with the letters. Next, I'm going to take some of this eucalyptus garland from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to trim it down just so it goes around about 1 time inside. And then we're going to arrange our 3 pumpkins on here. I will end up probably just gluing the top one just a little bit to make sure that it stays in. And once my pumpkins were in, I did take a couple more pieces of the greenery to tuck it in any spaces that were left open. You can also see here that I did add a few of the small sunflowers from Dollar Tree as well. I think this is really, really cute and would look great on a shelf or even as a centerpiece. For DIY number 2, we're going to make this Thankful and Blessed reverse canvas using the wood sign from Dollar Tree, a couple of napkins from Hobby Lobby, a wrapped canvas, and a little bit of florals. So if you've never made a reverse canvas before, this is a canvas that I had used from a previous project and I didn't want any more. So I'm taking my fingertip knife here and I'm just going around all 4 sides between the edge of the canvas and the staples. And then I'm going to easily be able to remove the canvas from the frame. I can use it for another project if I just wanted the frame. But for this, we're actually going to use the canvas but on the back of the frame. You'll see what I mean here in a second. So I'm getting the canvas all off, and then I'm going to take my staple remover and remove all those staples as well as the strips going around. So once I have the canvas off, I'm actually going to trim away the pieces of the canvas that were wrapped around the side and onto the back of the frame. So this is basically going to be the size of the frame. So we're just trimming those away and then we will toss those. We're not going to use them. Now I'm going to give the wood frame a coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color Moss. And that's really all I'm going to do. Just 1 coat on the front and the inside and the outside of this wood frame. Next, I'm going to take my matte finish Mod Podge on this piece of canvas that we cut away, and I'm going to brush a pretty solid, good layer of the matte finish Mod Podge all over this piece of canvas. We're going to let it dry because we are going to Mod Podge a couple of really pretty leaf pattern napkins from Hobby Lobby onto the front of the canvas, and we're going to make this the background of this sign. Then once that is completely dry, you can see I'm going to take 2 of these smaller napkins and I have removed any of the other layers. This is just the very top printed layer and I'm centering them here on the canvas. You're going to see I'm going to iron 1 of them at a time. So putting some parchment paper over the napkin, just making sure that it's going to fully fill the frame. We're going to just push with a medium warm iron until the napkin is secured onto the canvas, because the iron is going to reactivate that dried Mod Podge and then it's going to grab onto the napkin. So we're going to do one side and then we're going to match up the other napkin right up to the one that's already stuck down and do the same thing. Once I'm done ironing it, I'm just going to take some scissors and trim the extra napkin off of the 2 sides, and we'll do this on both sides. Now taking the frame that we painted, I'm just going to line it up, make sure the leaf pattern now fills in the entire frame. Then we're going to put some hot glue on the back of our frame and glue it down to the canvas with the napkins on it. Next, taking the Thankful and Blessed sign from Dollar Tree, I'm just going to give this a coat of Truffle Waverly chalk paint. It's that dark brown. This is going to make it pop really nicely off of the light colored napkins. Next, to reinforce our canvas onto the wood frame, I'm just taking my staple gun and I'm going around the outside edge on the back just to secure down the canvas. Next, I'm going to very carefully put another layer of Mod Podge over the top of these napkins. And to do it carefully, I'm using one of these foam brushes and I'm just pouncing on the napkin with the Mod Podge. I'm not using any brushing motions because I don't want to rip or pull up any of the napkin. And I'll also go around and do a little bit more Mod Podge on the frame of our sign as well. Now that our Mod Podge is dry, I'm taking my hot glue and I'm going to now attach the Thankful and Blessed wood sign to the background of our canvas. And the last thing I'm going to do is just add one of these sunflowers from Dollar Tree as well as some leaves. And here's our finished reverse canvas. I love how it turned out. I love that I can Mod Podge the napkins onto the actual canvas. And I just think you can take this idea and use it in so many different ways. For DIY number 3, we're going to make these standing fall pumpkins and a stand using 4 of these pumpkins from Dollar Tree, 3 of these lidded boxes, and some tall skinny wood letters from Hobby Lobby. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some wood glue and some clamps. I'm gluing the 3 lids together, and then I'm also going to glue the 3 boxes together. We're going to use the layer of lids and then the layer of boxes to create a little stand for these pumpkins. Next, coming to our 4 MDF pumpkins, I'm going to remove the raffia bow. I'm also going to sand the fronts and the backs of these with actually an electric sander because the glitter and the raised words, I want to make sure those are completely off. Then I'm going to take my matte finish Mod Podge and I'm going to do what I did with the canvas. I'm going to put a layer on the front of my pumpkins and then I'm going to let it dry. Now that our pieces are glued together, I'm taking the 3 boxes and I'm going to use a baby wipe and the antique wax to give this a nice dark stained look. Then with the box lids, I'm going to use that Waverly chalk paint in the color Moss again. And we're just going to cover right over those llamas and also on the side edges of this little riser that we've made. For the tall, skinny wood letters from Hobby Lobby, I'm going to give them each a coat of plaster. So we're going to Mod Podge with napkins again. I got this gorgeous one also from Hobby Lobby. I'm removing all of the layers so that we can just have the top layer of the napkin. Then we're going to cut each napkin in half long ways so we have two skinny pieces, and placing that napkin down on the pumpkin, putting some parchment paper over. We're going to do the same thing with our iron, and we're going to Mod Podge this gorgeous pumpkin and sunflower napkin on all 4 of our pumpkins. Once that napkin is securely ironed on, we're going to take our little hand sander and go in a downward motion around the edges of the pumpkin. This is going to cut away the excess part of the napkin so we just have what is attached to the front of the pumpkin. Once we have all 4 pumpkins done, we can hot glue our wood letters down onto the front. You can see how that light colored plaster really makes those letters pop off of these gorgeous napkins. Using my Tim Holtz Distress ink again, I decided to go around the edges of each of the pumpkins as well. Next, coming to the 2 pieces of our stand, I'm taking some hot glue and I'm going all the way around and in between of the boxes that we glued together. And then we're going to attach this down onto the lids that we made in a slightly larger stand. I am lining them up at the back and then centering them side to side. Next, coming back to the pumpkins, I'm going to take my Waverly pumpkin chalk paint and I'm going to paint around the edges and the back side of each of our 4 pumpkins, giving them a nice uniform finished look. Since I didn't really care for the raffia bows, I'm going to take this black and white gingham check ribbon and I'm going to make 4 simple bows that we are going to glue to the stems of our pumpkins in place of the raffia. And here we are gluing them on. I am going about halfway up so that the bow doesn't cover any of the letters. The stand was looking a little plain to me, so I decided to take this Hobby Lobby 1-inch wide black and white gingham ribbon, and I'm just tacking it in the back, and we're going to go all the way around right at the middle of the brown, the antique wax part of the stand. So we're just gluing it, wrapping it around, and gluing it again on the other side. I loved the sunflowers on the napkin, so I decided just to add 1 of these mini sunflowers with some leaves on the bottom left corner of our stand. And here's the finished project. I did not glue the pumpkins down so they could be stored easily, and I just think these are super cute. Of course, you could modify this with any scrapbook paper or napkin or color scheme. And for our final DIY of this video, we're going to make this cute fall directional sign using some wood arrows and a plaque from Dollar Tree, some scrapbook paper, and the handle of this plunger. So I loved this sign for the top of our sign. My wood scrapbook paper I had wasn't quite wide enough to fit side to side, so I'm just painting a little bit of truffle, the dark brown, on the two far edges of this sign, and you'll see why I need that in just a second. Now taking some other scrapbook paper, I'm going to cut some pieces that I can cover these two arrows with. Now, because this pattern wasn't a full sheet, I did have to cut two pieces and piece them together on top of the arrow. And we'll do the same thing with the other pattern of scrapbook paper. So now using our Mod Podge, we're going to brush it onto the wood arrows and then stick down our scrapbook paper. And now that our paint is dry, we can do the same thing to this sign that will go at the top of our pole. So I'm going to put the Mod Podge over the whole thing, and because this is thinner scrapbook paper, I am going to spritz it with water to reduce the chance for bubbles. Once our scrapbook paper is dry, I'm taking that same sander with a little bit of a lower grit number, so it's a little more scratchy, and I'm going to get all that scrapbook paper off of the excess around the edges of this sign and also the arrows. Next, taking two of these wooden ornaments that are pumpkins, I'm going to trace out where the center would be. This is not a necessary step, but I thought it would be cool to show you how you could take two of these and make it look a little more 3D. So I'm cutting away the two side sections of this one pumpkin, and then once we get the pieces painted, we'll glue this center one on top of the whole pumpkin to make it raised. So I'm going to paint the whole pumpkin and the piece we cut with our Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin. I'm also going to paint one of the Dollar Tree apples with scallion. Next, I'm going to use some sticker letters out of my stash. On this top sign, I'm going to spell Happy Harvest. On this arrow, we're going to spell the word pumpkins, and on the other arrow, the word cider. And now that the pieces of our pumpkin and the apple are dry, I'm going to use that distressing ink again, and I'm going to go around the edges. And now we'll glue that middle piece of the pumpkin onto the whole pumpkin, and you can see how cute that is. It just makes it a 3D pumpkin. Next, we're going to seal in all 3 pieces with Mod Podge so that our stickers do not peel off. And why not? I decided to use the distressing ink around the edges of these 3 pieces as well. And now that our arrows are sealed, I'm going to glue our pumpkin onto the pumpkin's arrow and the apple onto the cider arrow. And we'll make a couple small jute twine bows that will glue to the pumpkin and the apple to cover up the holes. I also found this little wood leaf sticker from last year that I added to the top of the Happy Harvest sign. Next, taking some hot glue, I'm going to glue some floral foam into this metal bucket from Dollar Tree. Then I'm going to put some glue down the little hole that I made with the plunger handle, and we're going to stick that in and glue that in place as well. And then we'll glue our top sign and our 2 arrows to the plunger handle, making sure they dry completely and reinforcing them with hot glue on the back as well. Then to finish this off, I'm going to add some raffia to cover up the floral foam, and we'll add a few mini sunflowers as well. And here's the finished signpost. I love how it turned out. I think it's so super cute. And like I said, you could make it with whatever colors of scrapbook paper you have on hand. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. Please let me know in the comments which of these projects was your favorite. We'll see you next time. Take care.